And I'm not saying that you are coming from a diss perspective.
Hello! And display a public apology for technically something I didn't do, but you know what? Let's clear the air. I still stand by what I said. My bad, gang. DHH, let's stop chasing trends. Show me a verse where it's talking about Bible guns.
Let's not act like people don't create dope things in this space and people like to run off with it because it's trendy. Let's not be picking and choosing.
Even when people have done it with me, where they've completely tried to take.
It's important that people understand to go after what it is you're supposed to go after.
It's your boy DJ Chris here, and you know what, man? We're gonna scrap the regular intro and we're gonna run with this intro, man. Nah, we're not doing that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. What is up with y'all? I am back with another video, man, and today I wanted to speak on something I debated if I should dead all together or just like really push out there, but I felt the importance of speaking on this, and especially because of how quick this whole interaction happened and how fast it happened. People weren't really caught up to speed with like everything that happened, and as a result of it, like on the surface of the optics, this whole situation that I'm gonna break down, it kind of looked weird, it kind of looked foolish to some people, it kind of looked like some nonsense, and it depends how you want to view it. Me personally, if you were watching the whole entire timeline of this whole thing that I'm about to break down, in the long run it does make sense, and I would say you'll agree with me by the end of the video of how something that people might think is pretty dumb to, talk about is really important in pushing the space of really Christian music, Christian hip-hop, Christian R&B, whatever it is, forward, just because stuff like this come and goes, and we really never get the chance to like capitalize on this and really treat these conversations at times more serious and more, I guess, like progressive or for the betterment of the space. And so with my intentions, it's definitely not fair to just leave this situation hanging, especially because I only covered it on Instagram and I had different people asking me what happened. So I figured I'd break down the situation and also give my thoughts, because ultimately when I was covering this situation that happened throughout the day, I never really got to cover my own thoughts really. I was trying to cover like both ends or both sides of what people were arguing for or against. So I'm gonna do that, man, and we're gonna get into this video and really stress the importance of really shout out to Fast Break, who was also involved in this situation and also hosted this whole live. Really stress the importance of having conversations that progress the space of Christian music forward. Plus, with everything that happened, some people were accusing some of the artists involved of clout chasing. Some people were going as far as to accuse me somehow of clout chasing. Some people were accusing Fast Break of this as well, Proper Excel. However, this did break out into a chain and series of events as the day went on. So without further ado, I did want to break this down, and I'll give you guys a timeline of what happened, and at each point, if I bring up an artist that was involved, I'll give their side and also my thoughts as well until we progress towards the end of the story and wrap things up. Now, pretty much what happened, I mean, man, y'all need to tell me, because Monday afternoon when I woke up from a night shift, I wake up in the middle of the afternoon to a Fast Break post posting some lyrics from Psy the Legend, who is a pretty young artist in the space. I believe he's like a high school kid. He's been making music around the Christian hip hop space for quite some time now. He essentially posted a project over the weekend in which had a song called Minister Freestyle 2, which had some lyrics in particular that talked about, and I'll quote it here: "I need CHH to talk more scripture, less about a demon, more God in the picture. Demon killers, y'all are not gangster G. All I see is faking personality. Tell the white kids to get your Bible blickies. Why we trying to tell a kid to grab a blicky? Y'all forgot what influence is. I don't slay a demon. I don't do satanic viewers. All y'all concerned about is virality. Judging your brother and doing it casually. Honestly, lacking the full originality. I'ma just say it cause this reality. We got the creator of creation, yet you don't want to let your trend be your new inspiration. I don't get it, yes I'm hating. I'ma make a difference. I don't even need your placement. Industry plants planting seeds, only in it for the money tree. All I truly see is bad business. Trends come and go, it's sad to see. Forrest Frank said my music isn't good because it hasn't gone viral yet. Time to prove him wrong for generations. This the time I start another trend." Now, these lyrics in particular that were posted by Fast Break really set the events for the day, in which a whole 2-hour live that they hosted took place. And I mean, you had different artists from the space coming in and jumping in this live. You had a lot of people throughout the day leaving a lot of different opinions, with people agreeing, people disagreeing, people who were, in my opinion, weren't really caught up to the whole situation, so they were kind of just commenting on the surface. They were in it too, but really, in my opinion, personally, when I saw these lyrics, I thought people were more so gonna go at Forrest Frank with what he said a couple months ago, or really dating back to I think March, with it was like a small clip where I think it was just him talking about if your music doesn't go viral, then it's probably not good. Because I remember people were pretty upset about that, but that really wasn't the case. Really, this whole story really centers around like the first part of these lyrics and the conversation of demon killing and Bible blicky bars. And this is a topic I've seen come and go. I've seen people express their opinions about it and how artists at times can overuse these lyrics. And I mean, I remember when Fast Break hosted the live and Sai got things started. His whole point that he was basically trying to defend that I got out of it is the concept of like demon killing and Bible blicky and these constant references, they're overused. He also stated that when artists use these kind of references, there really isn't enough serious tone and depth when it comes to these references, especially with how scripture talks about demons and just the natural conversation we have when we talk about just demonic holds and forces people deal with when it comes to like personal things they go through in their lives. Like these things are serious. And I would personally agree with that because people, whether if it's alcoholism or a drug addiction, people have to overcome that. And when they do get on the other side of that, looking back, people can make references to how demonic that thing they were dealing with was around the time they were dealing with that sin or whatever it is. I know from my own personal experience, when I dealt with pornography for years and I eventually came out of the other side of that, looking back, I didn't notice how the little things in my life were actually being affected, and it really affected me holistically as a person. And I would say with how hard it was to break out of that cycle, those things were very much demonic. I would say that, you know what I mean? People will argue for that. But those were one of his points that Saya was stating in the live. And along the way, OK Warren, who also came into the chat, shout out to Warren, man. He pretty much middleman the whole live from start to finish, or at least like the majority of it. Like he middleman that entire situation to where people think that this situation wasn't handled that well properly, even though that's really coming from the surface, from like maybe a minute clip they saw of the actual full situation. But I promise you, things would have been a lot worse if there was no middlemaning going on. But Warren was in the middle of it, and he was like the voice of reason and advocating for really the way Sias was going about things when he posted those lyrics and how he was trying to like stand on business about the things he says. And one of the biggest things that people brought up was the fact that with the lyrics he posted, that Sias was essentially calling out certain artists. That these references in particular were more towards artists like DKG Kai and Not Clyde, who are fairly known for using these references in their lyrics and how they use them. But people essentially thought that they were going at these guys. And Sias said that he really wasn't. This is just like a general thing in the space he was more attacking. But realistically, it's like when you generally attack a point in the space, it's gonna attract the guys who are the most known for these types of lyrics. And especially the fact that they did pop up in the live at some point. I know Sias had a mentor that popped in that was kind of like, you know, popping in to kind of just kind of middleman, but also like vouch more for Sias and everything like that. But you know, he popped in, and Gavin the Hot Rod, he shortly followed in after. And with Gavin, one thing I could tell that him and Sias agreed on was the fact that this conversation of demons, demon killing and everything like that, like this does have depth, or it's really supposed to, because of how influential these things can be. And for Gavin's point, I mean, coming from the street life and just growing up in it, he was vouching and he was speaking for the things that he had gone through and he had seen, and for himself, how demonic these things were. And I don't know what he was up to in the streets, but I mean, like, if it's like pushing away or if it's like seeing people killed, some people would consider those things demonic, because to grow up and be desensitized to a lot of these events, like those aren't just average everyday things that people go through. But Gavin brought that point up, and I could tell they were both kind of on the same page with that. But for the most part, it was just the fact that Gavin the Hot Rod was addressing Saya mainly for the fact of how he's handling things, and how a little bit I would say like one-sided he was addressing everything from, just because for a lot of these people, and I know Gavin brought this up a little bit, this is a calling for them. This is like part of their ministry to reach those types of people. But that was shortly cut after, because I mean, DKG Kai would jump into the live, man. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna lie, this is no shot at Sias or any artist whatsoever, but I just thought this point of the live was kind of funny, because the beginning of the lives, like Sias was like pretty much kind of standing on business, you know, he's 10 toes down and everything. But then it was like when DKG Kai came in, you know what I'm saying, like when he came in, it was like it looked like he really saw a demon, like in real. Okay, no, I'm sorry, I was like, that's going too far. But as soon as he came in, it was like Sias knew he was gonna have to like basically face the consequences of like what he said, or at least like defend it, right? But to DKG Kai's credit, I mean, shout out to him. He came in like he knew as well, you know, he's not gonna go crazy on a high school kid, but he did want to address what Sias had said, because especially with the way he was speaking on things, it was kind of crazy with how he was speaking on these things, and how when you look at these lyrics too, for Sias, he was trying to generally attack the whole concept of it in the space. He wasn't really trying to aim his shots at any artist, because a lot of people were saying that this is a Christian diss track or whatever towards DKG DKG Kai or Not Clyde or whoever else. But I mean, when you do look at these lyrics, even if you don't intentionally aim at a certain artist, when you do have lyrics like all I see is faking personality, you know, at some point those artists are gonna have to speak out for themselves and defend what they do, just because we don't know these people in real life. So for DKG Kai and Not Clyde, who also as well was pretty much like in the live, he was just chilling in the back, but for these guys to walk into a live and they're looking at lyrics like all I see is faking personality, y'all forgot what influence is, you're accusing them of chasing virality, you know, at some point you do have to speak up and defend yourself, because you don't know what people's intents and hearts are behind what they do. And I mean, essentially that's what pretty much happened. So DKG Kai, he came in and he explained, you know, his whole thing with how he came from doing youth ministry prior to basically becoming a Christian rapper. And with him and his whole deal, you know, it's the fact that when it comes to reaching out to these kids in the streets of Detroit, I mean, a lot of these kids, from his experience, they do want to be involved in church, they do want to reach out and go out, but they don't feel welcome, they feel foreign in a church, essentially. And sadly, for some churches, that can be the case. And so for DKG Kai, this whole approach to his music and just who he is as a person, that's just a part of who he is, and that's a part of his mission. And I think online, like, some people do refer to him as the demon killer, which I don't know if that's true or not, but the whole point is that to him, this is a calling, right? And like he mentioned in the live, you know, his lyrics are able to speak to people's lives who thought they couldn't overcome something because of how much of a demonic hold that sin that they were dealing with had on them. One thing I'd say that they did kind of had an agreement on was the fact that the space around Christian hip hop focuses too much. And I kind of brought it up a couple of videos back, but the space of Christian hip hop really focuses too much on trends and virality. Like, one instance that DKG Kai brought up was like the whole P31 thing. Like, for him, like, that's overplayed, like that's overused, and him and Sai could both kind of get on board with that. But I will come back to that at the end of the video, because I do want to tie this to a bigger point that's a growing issue in Christian hip hop. But yeah, for DKG Kai, he did want to come in and address this, because I mean, like, who wants to wake up in the middle of the afternoon on a Labor Day Monday and like address this on a random Instagram live? But you know, he came in and he spoke his part. And as tough as these conversations were to have and how rough things kind of seemed, towards the end, progress was made and people were learning more from this conversation and things were progressive. Like, that's the whole outcome of it towards the end. Obi came in and he gave his piece and really spit some game to Saya about the fact that there's just some hills that just aren't worth dying on. Obi talked about how he's been involved in the Christian hip hop space since like 2010, which is quite a long time. So he definitely had a lot of wisdom to impart on Saya and really got through to him about the fact that for a lot of people, like, this is a ministry, this is a calling. Paris Chariz also jumped in and he also gave his own thoughts. And I like the fact that he just talked about how at 21, he had a different outlook on Christian hip hop and how he wanted to do things for God, and while also simultaneously like trying to be like the biggest artist in the space. And along the way, he talks about how his perspective changed of that. The outlooks that Sai is gonna have now, those are gonna change along the line, because things on the front end of something aren't simply as black and white as they seem as you move towards the back end of that situation or that perspective. But I mean, by the end of all this was all wrapped up, this was over. And I mean, yo, shout out to Warren, Obi, and Paris Chariz. Those were like the MVPs of that whole conversation that tied it up and really kept this conversation dignified, well represented on both ends, and pretty peaceful, and really not like letting 17-year-old kid like kind of just like get embarrassed out there. 17, 18-year-old kid. They were able to pass on some gems to him and keep it moving. And with wrapping this video up, I just wanted to talk about that on the surface, these moments do look foolish when you consume it from a 1-minute perspective in Instagram comment sections or whatever it is. But when you walk through this entire situation and you're not just consuming it in under a minute, you know, you do realize that these type of moments do need to be hashed out. Just because everyone is always talking about trying to progress the space of Christian hip hop and just Christian music forward, whether if it's just like finding new ways to minister to new people who are unfamiliar to the Lord, pushing the quality of the music and just the different sounds and sonics out there. I believe those are two things that CHH has quite literally elevated over the last 10 years to the point where I would say, especially with the quality of the music, they're putting better stuff out there than what the music industry right now is currently putting out. Is because I kind of have my ear out to the streets when it comes to like different pockets of music and different genres, not just CHH. And it's kind of like the general consensus is that like hip hop is just not where it's at 7-8 years ago when it was more trending. CHH is at a point right now where it's excelling in just reaching people with getting people to know the Lord and also getting people to hear different sonics and inspirations. But one thing that it does need to work on though is hashing out tough conversations in that process, because as loud and as Wrong Size was, to a degree there was some weight and validity to what he was trying to express. The very fact that he did this doesn't really negate the fact that these are at times quite downright tough conversations we do need to have, just because when it comes to demon killing and Bible blicky bars, you know, there are concerns of that. The tone I find with artists that do use these references, sometimes it can come off, I wouldn't say unserious or anything like that, but it can come off a little bit like nonchalant because of how overused and oversaturated it is now. And that's not speaking to DKG Kai or Not Clyde, who essentially have enough of a distinct sound to where they can add their own unique twist on these kind of references. But it does speak to this repetitive issue and problem with CHH to really latch onto trends and kind of just go and run with it. Because, you know, once one person starts being original, everybody starts doing the same thing. And with how small the space is, when everybody is doing the same thing, it can look bad. It does, like, that part does concern me at times. So Sias isn't really fully wrong with how he approached and handled things, but to certain instances, I think like you do have to agree with him when it comes to with just how the whole community as a whole handles certain things. CHH doesn't really handle trends too well. And also one of the lyrics that I won't lie, to me, he was pretty much like, people do say this, but he was spitting on this one line here, but he said, you know, we got the creator of creation, yet you want to let your trend be your new inspiration. When he's speaking on that, that is indeed true, because that is a problem of CHH when it comes to seeking inspiration. Obviously, as an artist, everybody's trying to grow their music, everyone's trying to blow up, everyone's trying to do the best they possibly can for themselves, and we all get caught up in trying to put our content out there and make it go viral and really break into the scene and use different hashtags or whatever's working for other people, whatever's trending. But at times when we do get caught up in that, we do forget that we do serve a God that is the creator of everything. Knowing the sentiment that you're under the hand of a God who created everything, it's kind of like a lot of artists definitely shouldn't limit themselves when it comes to like chasing trends and captions, whatever it is, when it comes to like getting their music out there. A lot of times really just being yourself and telling your story is the best way to reach the people you need and be your true authentic self. And normally trends, when people chase trends only exist because it started out of a person's original idea. Trends will blow people up, but at the end of the day, while it's easy to hop and chase on trends, being yourself usually ends up with people and trends chasing you. And with CHH, I think if we focus more on that, I mean, considering where CHH is at now, especially in the last 10 years from where it was before, I mean, it has made tremendous progress. So I think with artists around the space, I think if they focus more on that, I'd say CHH, where it's going right now and where it can go in the next 5 or 10 years, I think if a lot of artists just continually just be themselves, it really won't matter if, you know, Christian music is corny or if it's this or Bible blicky or demon killing bars, like that won't matter because you're authentically being yourself. And I'm not here to abolish anyone's right to use these types of bars or references, because I know for some artists these references at times does coincide with their music. But to add another point that was also brought up in the live is that the oversaturation of these references definitely does call for more depth and range if you are going to use these references. Just because once everybody starts using certain lines that have been used before, especially with how small the space is, at some point, you know, you do want to add more depth and meaning into what you're saying. Not really just to stand out, but also because that can actually go a long way. Like I know, for example, with No Big Deals, My Demons Are Depressed line, I remember I bought a shirt last year at Holy Smoke, but to me, like that is a pretty good reference. That line has some depth, that reference has some meaning, and that's a meaning that he pretty much put on a shirt and I bought myself. But to me, that to me has depth. And when I do put this shirt on, from time I will have people that ask about it, and you know, it does lead into some great conversations. But to me, like those are examples of like the benefits from time striving to add more depth and range into those bars. A quick analogy I'll give off before I wrap this video up is just the fact that CHH is kind of like when you're at the gym and you're bench pressing, right? At the very beginning, CHH couldn't really get the bar up high. They had to work on getting their strength up a little bit. They had to work on adding more weight. And over the years, that's pretty much what happened. But after a while, when you do add more weight, you're only going to hit a certain point. And then that's when you have to work on other upper body muscles like your wrists, your shoulders, your back to really push more weight into the bar. And that is what essentially has been the case for CHH. It's essentially pushed the bar on the quality and sonics of music. It's pushed the bar on reaching more people to know the Lord. But when it comes to certain muscles and other muscles that are still weak, you know, CHH has still some way to go. And I think they can get there as long as we're open to having these tough conversations and hashing it out, being respectful and practical about it, and really just understanding that as long as there's progress made at the end of these conversations, a lot can be learned from this. So to anyone listening, I hope you can pick up something from this video. To Saya, I would say there's definitely something to be learned from this. Just don't let the situation overshadow the fact that you did just release a whole project, just because some of the songs I actually went through are pretty solid, because the controversy did drive me to your music platforms. But definitely don't try and capitalize on this moment by trolling people into saying that this is all stage promo, because I think it does make the situation look worse than it actually was and kind of does more hurt for yourself than good after a while. So trolling in the comments might be a way to lighten the load of the controversy, but try not to buy too much into it, just because people eventually are going to really try and buy into into that. So hopefully, I do hope you've learned something from this. And I mean, to anyone else trying to comment, let me know what you guys make of this situation and kind of just like what this means to CHH and where it's at. I'll see you guys later. Take care and have a great start to the fall.